Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to go over the written work that you need to do for this week's assignment. Your work will be drawn from assignment 24.4 in your workbook, and much as was the case with last week's assignment, you'll be focusing on the opening of a fugue. However, while last week's assignment only asked you to analyze the initial subject and the first answer, this assignment will ask you to analyze the entirety of the exposition and to include in your analysis a few elements that you didn't deal with in last week's assignment. The only portion of this assignment you need to complete this week is section A. You do not need to do section B, which asks a series of questions and asks you to fill out a chart on the next page. You can leave this blank. It's not part of this particular assignment. Let's get started. The instructions ask you to take a look at the exposition of Bach's Fugue in G minor from the Well-Tempered Clavier, Book 1, and it asks you to include certain elements in your analysis. It says, mark on the score the entry of the subject, S, or answer A, in each of the four voices, and the entry of the countersubject, CS, if present. Label the bridge, if present as well. And then answer the questions that follow. And we will go over these questions together in this video so that you're clear as to what they're asking. Now remember, a fugue is inherently an auditory form. The idea of these entrances of the subject or answer is that we can hear them. They are a recognizable statement of a motive that we are familiar with. So it's really crucial that you listen to these pieces before you start to analyze. You will hear the subjects and answers, hopefully, as long as you listen to the recording. So with that in mind, let's listen to the opening of this, trying to notice where this subject comes in other voices. Before you begin your analysis of this piece, make sure you've heard the subjects and answers in the recording. You may have noticed exactly where they are after that one listening, but if not, pause this video, go back and listen to that recording again, or listen to the embedded audio file in the assignment page. Really important that you recognize and identify, based on the sound of these motives, where they occur. I'm going to give you a little analysis here to get you started. As indicated in your score, the subject begins here. We have this step up, leap down, and a leading tone. Even though this begins on the note of so, this overall motive is really tonicizing tonic. So we can think of this subject as representing an emphasis on the one chord. I see a similar motive over here. Goes up, skips down. I have a leading tone to the dominant. So as expected, the harmonic component of the subject is 1. The harmonic component of the answer is 5. I'm going to give you a little helpful hint. There is a counter subject in this, and it begins right here on this descending 16th note line. We'll call this C, S for counter subject. I'm not going to provide any more analysis. It's your job to find the remaining subject and answers and instances of counter subject, but I will point out that there are 4 voices in this, and that means there will be 2 subjects and 2 answers. The subject is a motive that emphasizes tonic, as this do-ti-do does. The answer, by its definition, is the same motive, but that has been transposed to the dominant. So you'll see this so, fi, so gesture. It is typical, although your job to confirm this, for the progression to be subject and answer, and then another subject in another voice, and then another answer in the 4th voice. It is also very common when the subject or answer is being played for there to be a counter subject, as you see here. The counter subject can sometimes be harder to see, but when you see an answer or subject, be looking for this gesture along with it and analyze, if you see it, analyze that as the counter subject. The bridge is a section that oftentimes will follow the first answer. The idea is that because we have just transposed the motive to the dominant, and to some extent tonicized the dominant, before we return to the subject, which is going to want to tonicize the key of 1, our tonic, we might need a little bit of music to clear the palette and work our way back harmonically to our home base. The way you will know if there's a bridge is to find out where the next subject or answer comes in, and if there is music between the end of this answer and the beginning of the next subject, then that's your bridge. And you can label it just with the word bridge. Let's go over these questions briefly to give you a sense of what's being asked for. You're supposed to indicate whether it is a real or tonal answer. We talked about this last week, if you'll recall. A real answer does not modify the subject in any way. A tonal answer will alter the subject slightly. And the reason we might have a tonal answer is because we have strongly emphasized the dominant to tonic pitch in the subject, and we don't want the tonality of the answer to go too far astray from tonic. Is there a counter subject? Well, I guess I've answered that question already. I'll circle it here. Yes, there is a counter subject. But this is interesting. If there is a counter subject, is it presented in invertible counterpoint? This is a subtle point, but one that is very important for this style of music. Invertible counterpoint means that a gesture or a motive can be presented either above or below another melody. You can invert the counterpoint and it will still work based on the interval quality. The way of determining this in this piece, right now the counter subject is presented below the subject. If you find a counter subject presented above a subject or an answer, then it is going to be invertible counterpoint. I think you'll find your answer once you look at the analysis, but be looking for this counter subject and see the way in which it interacts with the subject and answer. If there is a counter subject, are the motives derived from the subject? Your job to tell me that, but examine the subject and tell me, does this counter subject look like it is drawn from some element of that subject? If that is the case, how is it drawn from that? Is it drawn from it based on augmentation, which would be to take a gesture and expand the rhythm? Diminution, which would take the rhythm of some part of the subject and make it faster, smaller rhythmic values? Does it take a gesture from the subject and invert it? Where the subject goes up, it goes down, or vice versa. And we know there is a counter subject, so you can ignore this answer. Is there a link or bridge between the second and third entries? Yes or no? Your job to discover that, but we did talk about a moment ago about what you're looking for to determine if there's a bridge. Make sure to mark it on the score. The last question, I'm going to give you the answer to this. It says identify and circle 2 significant motives introduced in the exposition. The 2 significant motives here are the subject and the counter subject. And that's it. So you don't need to really do anything with this, but do circle the subject and do circle the counter subject as well, just so you're clear what these elements are. That's all you need to answer in this assignment. Shouldn't take too long, but do take time to listen to this and carefully think about how your answers are supported in the sound of the piece.